How do you like my haircut, by the way?
You know what? You went really tight there, Ali.
Yeah.
The COVID no maintenance cut. Who cut
Let's
it?
have that be the first topic of conversation is my new haircut.
I've seen a few of those. Like I saw my brother-in-law last night, and he let the kids cut his hair, finished up by his wife, so everybody got a shot at him. And they just whacked him. They started shorter, and then finally just took the buzzers and called it good.
There's a lot of things to be stressed out about right now.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought my hair should not be one of those things.
No.
So I chopped it off.
I literally went to an underground hair salon.
A speakeasy?
This total speakeasy. Knocked 3 times, boom, boom, boom. She opened up the door. And I walked in, cut my hair, and I was on my way.
Wow.
I know.
Well, I think that's a great way to start. Greg, I wanted to welcome you to our new web series, DealerChats. It's a one-on-one informal video series with different members of the auto industry. You are going to be our first guest of the show, so I really, really wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart for, again, being the first one that takes the leap with us. This is Greg Tomassian with Cash for Cars in San Jose. One of the first dealers that signed up with us originally.
I refer to us as early adopters.
And it's been a pleasure.
And, you know, same on my end. I value our relationship, and it's been great. You guys have done amazing things.
Thank you very much, Greg. I've had a chance to talk with you almost probably every other day, and obviously things have changed greatly over the past couple months. I really wanted you to be on this program with me so we can, you know, have a conversation about things that are happening right now, not just relevant to you, but also relevant to other dealers in our state and in our country. People like you who are in this industry and people like me who are in this industry to be able to have these kinds of conversations and share this information with other dealers, because, you know, there may be a dealer in San Diego who experiences something that, you know, a dealership in Sacramento might not hear about for years. And so this is kind of another platform for dealers to be able to be more informed, better informed, and more up to date on these kinds of things about, like the things that we're going to be talking about today.
You know, we have been and will be entering into uncharted water. So, you know, we need to all pull together as an industry and do whatever we can to, you know, survive and thrive.
Just talking about COVID-19 in the past couple of months, you being based in Santa Clara County, one of the first businesses in the country to go through the shelter-in-place orders. How has that impacted your dealership? I mean, negatively or positively? I've heard some positive stories too.
We were already experiencing some slowdown. You know, that was the beginning of our tax season. And, you know, this is the time of year where, you know, it's 2 or 3 of the best months of the year. So we look forward to that all year long. And we noticed a notable decline in our lead flow and our traffic. Our highly trafficked street literally turned into a ghost town overnight. I mean, where we would have, you know, a car a second coming by, we would have, you know, sometimes 5 minutes before a car would even go by. And we had no foot traffic whatsoever. We still had a fair amount of leads. Leads were down by 45%, but nobody wanted to come in. Of course, we legally couldn't allow them to come in, and, you know, we ended up adjusting our behavior patterns over time, which we'll talk about later. But, you know, that was a stressful period, and I'm sure everybody, you know, that has experienced it and is experiencing that, you know, feels the same way.
I'm hearing a lot of positive stories that are also coming out. What positive elements have you seen come out of the events of the past couple months?
Well, after a couple weeks into the shelter-in-place order, we started seeing a pretty major uptick in leads. And
I thought me about
that was fascinating to me because, you know, you figure everybody's at home, but after they're home for a couple weeks, they were, you know, I could tell that, you know, it seemed like they were just climbing the walls and they were excited to get out. We kind of did what we had to do from the standpoint that, you know, I mean, survival was paramount and safety was right up there with it. So trying to marry those two components of adhering and being a good citizen, but also being a responsible business person, analyzing risks as an adult, and taking action that is, that we deem to be safe and compliant at the same time. And of course, together, you and I, Ali, we were reading that, looking for, meanings, because, they're coming up with blanket statements about every industry without even really knowing the industry. When we had a reclassification that, well, online sales are okay, as long as you deliver the car to the customer's house, it sounds great. I mean, somebody, an administrator in Sacramento is going to go, yeah, they could just do that. No problem. That's a piece of cake. But when you're dealing with, especially us, we're an independent auto dealership, we have used cars.
Yeah.
Now, people aren't just going to, they don't want you to just deliver a car, especially our clientele. They want to see the car. They want to see the car in person. So outside of, driving a car out there, having them look at it, coming back, picking up another one, taking another one out there, and spending 3 or 4 runs back and forth from a customer's house who could live 25 miles away, it just wasn't practical. To date, I don't think we've done one.
You're not selling T-shirts.
No.
Right? You're not selling shoes. Even people that buy stuff online, even when they buy clothes online, they're hesitant because they're not sure if it's going to fit right, let alone buying a $30,000 car.
We would do as much as possible online, speak to the customer, they would view our inventory. We tried to have our inventory, as many pictures as possible, as much information on the cars, tried to keep that up. And then we would try to narrow it down to at least a couple, 3 cars. And then we'd be working on, the deal submission and, getting an approval if we hadn't done it ahead of time while they're on the test run. I'm on a street that has, 27 independent auto road. And so there's a lot of traffic coming through. I mean, it is rare for us to have 3 sets of customers on the lot, let alone 4 or more.
Right.
So we don't have more than 10 people on the lot, 12 people at max. And
max.
That we're keeping distance between, the staff is in different offices to begin with. It seemed kind of obvious to us what was going to be needed for our own protection and customers' protection, and then future mandatory compliance rules that I assumed would be handed down at some point. So we kind of spearheaded that project and moved forward with that ahead of time. And so we commissioned a local plastics fabricator, and we had them build plexiglass shields for the sales office and our administrative office. And then we instituted sanitizing stations. So we came up with a wall-mounted sanitizer dispenser and a sign. The salespeople have supplies of gloves and masks to hand out. We thought about just putting them out on a table, but I figured if we put them out on a table, we're not going to see them 30 minutes later. So
yeah. That's pretty incredible, the steps that you are taking. What kind of obstacles do you see in the next 3 to 6 months in this county, but also in other counties across the state and across the country when it comes to car sales?
The stimulus checks seem to be having a similar effect as tax refund checks. We're having people come in with sizable down payments, normal size for tax season, and in some cases higher than we would have expected under the circumstances. So I think there'll be a nice flow of customers, especially if we come up with yet another stimulus check.
Right.
So I think we might have a couple good months back to back when this thing opens up, and inventory, is more difficult to, the process is more difficult to get, but the price points have come down. Inventory, is more difficult to, the process is more difficult to get, but the price points have come down. The Manheim Market Report, the ADESA report, they've devalued a lot of the inventory. And so we're noticing our purchases have been pretty good relative to the competition we were experiencing last year.
Interesting.
In buying vehicles. So, I would encourage, people to stock up. Of course, a lot of the dealers that I've spoken with, you experience the same thing as me, that, our main flooring line, in the midst of all this, decided to cut our line back to, our outstanding balance, which was a little disheartening, right in the middle of it. Subsequently, a week later, they adjusted it, left some room, and we've been operating fine within that. But if we're going to go for a big push, we may need to extend that a little bit. And so, we've just been drawing upon personal lines in addition to our flooring lines. So I think getting in the ear of your area manager and saying that, now that it's opening up, I would, have everybody that has experienced this, maybe some haven't,
Sure.
A lot of people I have talked to have, together advocate to have lines increase so we can get back to having ample inventory.
Are there any specific flooring line companies that not necessarily ones that you work with, but other dealers that you've talked to that have maybe done more for dealers or done less for dealers that you are aware of at all?
I want to give, I guess the caveat to what I'm saying is I completely understand why they initially made those decisions. There's so much uncertainty. You don't really know where a dealer stands. You don't, want them, getting, sideways or out of trust, and have, the exposure just increase during uncertain times with them. So it makes sense. And I got to admit that, we use NextGear exclusively because we had made an arrangement and signed an agreement with them a number of years ago. And they've been great through the process. I mean, very communicative. Couple little challenges, going from the virtual audit to, I don't know if any of you else have experienced that, but that was interesting because we had a virtual audit one day, and we cleared the audit in 2 days. And those of you that know, that was really lucky. All the cars that they picked were all here. It was,
right.
It was great. And so I'm just clearing the audit up, and here comes the physical auditor to do another audit. And I said, wait a minute, what are you doing here? He goes, oh, we switched back to physical audit. So I just finished a virtual audit.
Oh, wow.
So we had to go through the whole process again. Well, the funny part was, and I'm digressing here, I told her, well, we just finished a virtual audit. She goes, okay, so you don't want me to do the audit? I said, well, if we've just done the virtual, that should suffice, right? She goes, oh yeah, don't worry about it. So she leaves. The next day, I see my entire inventory is unverified.
Oh no!
As though I refused the audit. I was fit to be tied. I was so pissed. I called NextGear. I said, hey, look, this is what happened. They're all like, yeah, gee whiz, you're gonna have to verify all the cars.
Oh. So
we had to take pictures of every single car in inventory and clear the audit. And so whatever, that was just one of those things where, they're making changes and then they're adapting to the change, and then they're, starting to go back to, the old ways. And so we got caught on that circumstance, which was a pain, but it all worked out.
I'm glad that you were able to, work that out with them, even though it took a few extra steps on your end.
You have to take care of your relationships that allow you access to capital,
That's right.
And that is key right now,
Yeah.
I'd done a lot of business in the past with AFC, another flooring company, and I'm still good friends with our local manager. And she had told me that they're doing pretty much the same thing. They had trimmed lines and they're just running a little tighter, It makes sense.
Yeah.
They said, and I'm sure they'll open up.
Have you heard of any stories about, other dealers who have run into staffing issues and how they're dealing with that?
Yeah. And, I want to put it in perspective because my story is unique to our situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the time, we were already on a pretty slim staff. We had for an inventory of, between 50 and 70 cars, we had, one salesperson and one manager who could also sell, one office manager, myself, and a lot man. So at the start of this, that was our staff to begin with. So, somebody that, might have been a similar size dealership or a larger dealership or a franchise dealership, of course, it would not make sense to try to retain staff and have them not be able to do anything. That to me would be that would be financially foolish, as much as you like the people,
Sure.
the survival of the entity has to be at some point, the first priority.
Hmm.
So I think if we had a full sales staff, that I might have, acted differently, and tried to make arrangements to where, I would do no harm to somebody I had to, furlough, but at the same time, try to make the decision that was going to help the business over the longer term.
Hmm. What other situations have you seen, or changes in customer interaction? Just you personally, and then
Oh
also
yeah.
your staff, dealing with customers. How has that changed?
1 out of 5 sets of customers are fully masked up, and you can see the body language as they're just tracking 6 feet, and you just appreciate that. You go, look, there's a good rule follower, and it makes sense. The majority of our customers are unbelievably cavalier about the whole thing. I mean, I get people
Wow.
coming right into my face, and I'm backing up going, excuse me, can you step back a little bit?
Are
You're
you
literally
serious?
spitting on me when you're talking to me. I've had a hand offered to me to shake so many times. I had a customer last week kind of charged me, grabbed my hand and shook it. I said, are you kidding me right now? I just looking at my hand going, ah. I went over, I took my sanitizer, I'm squeezing it in there. I'm like, can you not? That was just unbelievable. And
Wow.
and so I have seen very little fear in our customer base. This kind of goes back into what you can anticipate in the next 3 to 6 months. Some of our subprime lenders and such, are and even our credit unions and A and B lenders are experiencing lots of requests for deferments and lots of defaults. So that will be a trickle down effect. I mean, it always has been and it always will be. So
Right.
we're finding that a lot of our lenders are being very pensive about approvals at the time. I mean, they are not advancing as much as normal. They are being more vigilant in the verification process. They are literally calling every employer, whereas they might not have done that as long as they had, proof of income in the past. But they want to verify that they're in fact working and that the company's open, things like that. So even though we've had a fair amount of volume in April, our margins were, quite a bit less because of the bank's conservative posture under the
Hmm.
circumstances. So, and I feel like that's going to be something that's going to be continued, especially when the stimulus money and the tax money runs out. And if the banks are still going to be conservative, where does that come from? That comes from the dealer's margin. So you either
Right.
choose to roll the car and sell the car, or you don't. So maybe you had a $2,000 profit, and maybe now you have $1,000 profit,
Hmm.
and so you decide that's a decision you want to make. You know,
Right.
we're having a lot of people that are on unemployment, and they're comfortable with their ability to make the payment because of the fortified weekly payment for EDD, for unemployment insurance. Most of our banks will not provide a loan to somebody that's currently on unemployment. A couple will, and they've kind of adjusted and adapted and made provisions for that. So you may, if you haven't already, or I'm sure a lot of you have already experienced this as well, but you may talk to some of your lenders and ask them, if somebody's furloughed with a high intention of returning to work after the shelter-in-place order has been lifted, would they consider, extending credit to them if the rest of the amount that they make is, still puts them in the proper ratios to qualify for the loan.
And
So
have you seen much success with those kinds of conversations with the finance companies that you've been working with?
we've done, during a period of time, I think we've done five
Got
loans, 5 approvals that were unemployed at the time, but had decent tenure and a high likelihood for return to work. We talked about some of the positive things that have come from the dealership and from this pandemic, and some of the things that have been most helpful to us is our relationship with you and with DealerXT. We have shared since the beginning. We have shared ideas on the EIDL loan, the PPP loan, and some of the first information that was brought to me was through your portal and through your communication, through your informative emails that you would send out, and that got the ball rolling for us very early, and that has served us. And then the exchange of ideas back and forth, whereas I'd find out some more information, share it with you, you'd say, all right, I already knew that, or no, I hadn't heard that.
Mm-hmm.
And then back and forth with that has been instrumental in helping us learn about the processes, learn how to fill out the applications appropriately, and subsequently, obtain some of the available loans out there. We were funded with our PPP loan last week.
Excellent.
And man, that we, I know maybe some of you have been funded and maybe some of you haven't.
Mm-hmm.
And, we know that feeling. It got to the point where we're getting pretty lean. And I'm like, before I thought, oh, it would have been nice to get that. And, there came a point where I'm like, wow, I kind of really need that actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when that came through, that was just, okay, check. All right, well, that's gonna buy us a couple months.
Mm-hmm.
And, and we're going to be rewarded or compensated for retaining the staff that we did.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was great. And I attribute a lot of that to our communication back and forth. It was extremely valuable, and I won't forget your help.
Thank you very much. That really means a lot. And that's why we would do, that's why we do what we do. And to hear that coming from you really makes my day. And just know that we're not going to stop.
No.
There's a lot that needs to be done in this community, and a lot of that comes from knowledge. A lot of it comes from information that exists and sharing that information, and so that is something that we really, really pride ourselves on, and to hear that coming from you really means a lot, Greg. So thank you.
Well, expanding on that a little bit, when we filled out the EIDL loan together,
mm-hmm.
and as you've done for many of your dealers, and I thought that was very gracious, because there's always this feeling, it's like you trying to figure out the system as a dealer and wanting to make sure you fill out every part of the application correct, lest you misinterpret what a question means and have the application kicked back to you and you lose 20, 30 days, a month, or whatever.
Yeah.
And you go to the bottom of the pile potentially. That was nerve-wracking. So when you had offered and we made the initial contact on that, and you helped us fill out the loan, you submitted on our behalf, we were really appreciative. And then when I read the application and they were talking about external preparers for it, and then I had a conversation with you, it occurred to me that you were doing this, and you and your partner and your entity were doing this gratis as a service to the dealer without charging a loan fee, which I was blown away, because I know how many hours you guys have spent working on this, how many late nights, etc. And that is a testament to your commitment to your dealers, and I'm very thankful for that.
Thank you, Greg.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You don't see that very often, actually. There's always the hidden fees, and no matter what anybody's helping you, there's always a payday in it somehow, or at least that's our experience in business. So that's great.
Well, that's not our purpose is something much bigger than that. So I'm just glad that we were able to help, and that the little bit of assistance that we were able to offer was able to help you during this time, and hopefully put you in a better position in the near and far future.
Absolutely. Well, I'm committed to our relationship. DealerXT is awesome, and our relationship, as we said, goes back 5 years. But every time I've ever had a question, There's always been somebody over there that's helped me with it, both, you know, when a legal situation's come up or a compliance issue or general information on our industry. It is a great partnership that I value very much.
And we feel the same way with you, brother.
All right, right on.